I would just say, just to reiterate what I just said, just, having those, necessities for us. Toothpaste, toothbrush, things like that, we didn't have. So having those things right there, that was good for us.
Me personally, it goes more to what Melinda said earlier, the idea of being invisible, being marginalized, um, people walking past you, not even saying hello. I mean, I get that as a student now. I was born in the 70s, so I was born before a lot of this social media and virtual community building. So I find a lot um, finding it more and more that we don't necessarily communicate to each other directly. It's getting harder and harder to get a hello from or good morning or how you doing, and even people listening to the response. That's in a middle class perspective. In a homeless perspective, you're absolutely invisible. People actually, when you're not invisible, that's when the people are calling the cops on you, really. That's mainly when you're not invisible. So to me, besides the other stuff that I said earlier, homelessness is lack of community, not having a community, and especially in my case, being without family or being distant from family. Like the majority of my family lives in Louisiana, so I'm way away from family. And being ejected from my immediate family, personally, I carried a lot of anger. It took me a long time to get over that anger. I still don't like being touched. I don't necessarily hug. It takes me a while to warm up and socialize because you stay alone by yourself. So, I mean, like, that's kind of how the schizophrenia, or a lot of schizophrenia happens on the street. At one point in time, I was my best friend. I'm the person that had the most conversations with. I talk to myself a lot. And then when you lose sleep, and you don't have sleep, that type of mental stress breaks you down. And so then you go from like lack of touch, lack of communication, lack of interfacing. Yeah, so community to me, lack of community, community-less is a big part of that homeless definition. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, please.
First of all, people don't say hi to me either, so don't worry. Oh, you're talking about homeless youth, right?
Yes.
When you said youth, how old are they, first of all?
I mean, I was 16, but we have homeless youth that are like, babies. Like I said, there's a lot of families that are living in shelters and living out on the street. You have infants out there on the street. I mean, like, there was just a case maybe a year ago or so of a woman, she lost her child because she was homeless. She was put in a situation where she had to leave her child in the car. She left the car in order to get a job, in order to go to a job interview that might have changed her entire life. And it was reported that a child was left in the car and they took away the child. But a lot of families don't report that they're homeless because they're scared of ISIS. They're scared of Child Protective Services taking away their children. So, I mean, me personally, it started as a teenager, and that's probably when you see where you'll see the majority of it. But there are a lot of homeless families, so from 0 to 18.
Do they still go to schools?
Yeah, I mean, like, some of them do, some of them don't. I mean, like, if you're under the radar and you're, like, you're living in a cardboard house, you don't have clothes, you don't have access to hygiene, you can't really send your kids to school, can you? I mean, like, they're not going to accept them. If you don't have access to Medicare or Medicaid, you're not going to get shots, vaccinations, things of that nature. And once again, part of the problem of being homelessness is that you don't know who you can trust. So even there's this wall to where people don't feel comfortable to go and get services because they don't know who they can trust. And at any point in time, it can turn on you. I mean, like, until we start really looking at homelessness as like a full-out cohesive community problem, like, you're going to have this separation, and you're going to have one class against another class, and the homeless class have no power. So they're going to stay kind of obscure. So, like, no, you will find kids out there who haven't had their shots. You will find babies sleeping out on the street. You will find kids who were in a homeless situation And now they're not in a homeless situation and they are going to school, but they're way behind everybody else because of that. Yeah.
Okay, just one more thing. I'm
Sure.
sorry, but since I'm old, I have lots of things to cover.
Yeah, that's great.
Uh, First of all, I want to say something to Jill, including the people who are living with the fences or walls. This is for the first time in my life I noticed that you guys are not homeless. You have home, but you don't have fences. I think that's the difference. Jill has more pets than I do. I have no cats or whatsoever. She has several, and she has a river. She can go anywhere she wants. But the thing is, she doesn't have air conditioning, and then she doesn't have heat, and she doesn't have just like walls and ceilings.
She doesn't have security either.
Yeah, that's the point here. The question is, do you guys have any just a site or place you can set tents? So the government would not mind that you guys set tents and you could just live together or something like that?
Well, there's a film coming up dealing with a tent city that's being led by a minister. That's going to be the 16th. Is that right? 14th? Thank you. On Monday. I know it's Monday. I'm not good with dates, but I know it's Monday. That are talking about 10 cities. There is the river community, but I would like to, when we're not on film, I'll talk to you about that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, feel free to ask questions if you have them. I guess something that you touched on was the idea of communities. So I have an understanding where my feelings that we do have a community in Rutgers. Sometimes we also have smaller communities within Rutgers. So we have different organizations that we feel like we fit in somewhere based on our background or our interests. But there's also a community right outside Rutgers and City Brunswick, but then again, there's also their own niche of communities, like, there are immigrants coming in now, so we have a lot of Hispanics. But we also have the homeless population, and then that composes a lot of other individuals as well. So, like, could you maybe touch on the idea of communities, like, how it is that Rutgers students should pursue communities with what we have here in Brunswick?
Did you say perceive?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're asking, how should this community, or how should the Rutgers student community perceive what's going on outside of Rutgers?
Like, in other words, like, do you even see Brunswick as one of the communities that we could actually form a relationship with, and then therefore have a wholesome community? You know what I mean? Because even within Rutgers, we have our own little communities, but then again, it doesn't mean that we should separate ourselves from what's going on in Brunswick. So, what are your ideas on that? And maybe even if you have suggestions on how it is that Rutgers can participate within the New Brunswick area.
Okay. I think that we, the Rutgers community, as well as the New Brunswick community and other surrounding communities, could build, should build bridges between themselves. And I just had like a couple of ideas. I really was thinking about a homeless, like a homeless heart's house. The heart.
You're talking about the homeless action response team? Oh, okay.
It would be a homeless shelter, but okay. So the homeless shelter would be for adults and children as well, and perhaps families, and they would provide housing, shelter, and they would provide food and clothing. There could also be like a telephone support where they can have Rutgers students online or on the telephone and have people calling in that need support. They could also do a pinwheels or pretzels, like chocolate dipped pretzels for prevention. And I was thinking that I could possibly make those things just to raise money and raise awareness within the community. And I also had push for prevention and take action for awareness. So that could possibly become, an idea if possible. And just like also we could have a prayer walk maybe, if that was something that you foresee in the future.
You have any ideas too?
Oh, I got several. First one that I'm not. It's fine. Part of my statement was very political, but also the ID is not political as much as it could go either way. But it really is for accessing services. I mean, like you can't access these services without IDs. I mean, you have to literally have somebody even write you a letter to verify that you've been in the county for 30 days. So developing fundraisers to get IDs are to start the process of getting IDs is one thing. I threw parties. I threw raging parties. Thousands of people at my parties. I invited everybody from all over the place to come to the parties, from Newark to Camden. I had a lot of people at my parties. Made monies that way, and I end up donating a lot of that money and using that money to establish reliefs. So there's that concerted. You can organize those efforts, but also individual efforts of kindness, like swiping your card and letting the homeless or somebody that may be homeless have a go at these dining halls to where it's pretty kind of Roman, like you can eat whatever you want, all the types of variety of foods and stuff like that. Or whatchamacallit, there's a book called Sidewalks that talked about establishing businesses and helping the homeless establish side businesses and things of that nature. A lot of that is going on in Atlanta, making T-shirts for the homeless to sell. You guys could donate the books at the end of the semester that you're not going to use. Resell them to other students and collect that money for things that may help and assist the homeless. But I'm in the process of talking to organizers in SEIU, 1199ers, about starting a more progressive grassroots movement that reflects the labor movement of the Knights of Labor that organized the unemployed back in the early 1900s and late 1800s. And that, as an example, is you can get your departments involved. Like whatever major that you're in, whatever department that you're in, Rutgers has a lot of power in this town. And if you can talk to your professors, talk to some of the students in your department, find ways that your studies addresses some of the needs of the homeless. We have a large biology community and science community. A lot of those efforts can be established. This young man down here is. I'm going to give you time to talk about this, what you were telling me outside, but he has a brilliant idea dealing with community gardens. I had an idea of taking abandoned houses and abandoned apartments and turning them into agricultural centers with hydroponic growing and things of that nature, and allowing the homeless to live in those gardens and care for those gardens, and also have means of distributing or even selling those goods for some money in their pocket, maybe to get an ID. Contacting your local organizations. I mentioned Coming Home. Elijah Promise has another type of heart organization called Homeless Action Response Team, not to be confused with the Homeless Empowerment Project Community Action Team. They're out doing kind of some of the stuff that I was doing, except they have certified sociologists and people who deal with drug addiction. You can volunteer your time there. You can volunteer your time at Elijah's Promise at the soup kitchen. There's lots of things that you can act as individuals and make your own extra lunch bags. And if you see homeless people, give them some lunch. Buy an extra bar of soap. Buy some toothpaste. Little traveling things of that nature. I still do this as an individual, collect blankets, pillows, and hand them out at the train station, collect canned food and clothing. We live in a very materialistic society. People are always trying to get rid of stuff. You can collect that stuff and help distribute it to things that are needed. Plates, utensils, pots, hot plates. You know, you just think of a camping trip. You can get camping supplies. Jill was looking for a tent. You know, things of that nature. Umbrellas, galoshes, raincoats. Highly important. Not as important as triple down goose because that's hot. And you can always line your coat with newspapers. People don't know that. But a raincoat, highly important. Stay dry. You know, foot rot is terrible. It's awful. I've had it several times. It's not a good look. You know what I mean? It's really not. So, you know, things of that, right. So powder is really essential. Just little things like that. You could add that to your grocery list. Maybe the increase of your groceries would be $20. If that's too much, you can do it with $10. Socks, underwear, highly important. Highly important. T-shirts. I already said umbrellas, but they're so important. You can say it again. You know, yeah.
Yeah, so thank you very much for your ideas and also your perspective of what the communities can do to work together to help one another. So now I would like to open up the space to everyone here who have listened so far patiently. So I'm pretty sure you have some questions that were not answered as you were listening to Local Legend talk. If you have anything to say, just please speak up.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to say thank you first for coming. I mean, I can speak for myself, and I'm sure we all really appreciate hearing from you.
Cool.
So my question, I was thinking about this because of Melinda, what you said about the idea of a homeless hearts shelter, and also about Elijah's promise in the documentary. I guess I was wondering about what sort of challenges local nonprofits that service a homeless community face, aside from the obvious, like public funding.
Yeah.
Aside from that, what other challenges do they face, and how can Rutgers students, or I mean, university students in general, like alleviate those challenges, I guess?
Okay. Well, I think the number one thing would be volunteers, getting people out there to support and help them in their efforts. And besides, like you said, funding, I think it would be volunteers. And getting those people, those passionate individuals that are willing to go down there and help.
So what would volunteers be doing such that their time would be best spent?
Okay, for the homeless shelter, I believe that they would possibly be, helping with food, like distributing food, perhaps preparing the food to place in the bags or in, styrofoam boxes, containers. Thank you. So doing that, as well as probably helping with a hotline if possible. For people out there who don't come down, but who are willing to make a call and just tell, or just stretch out and, explain to someone that I am going through this situation, and families as well, because there are a lot of families that are going through these same situations. And I know some people have even gone through foreclosure, and they may be homeless as well. So it's definitely something to look into.
Coming home and the Middlesex County Homeless Youth Task Force, I hope I'm saying this right, we're looking for people to volunteer time to do a homeless count. I know that's passed, but it's normally done in the winter. And so they're kind of under volunteer or under participation with that because most of the time it's really cold and it's done at night. I've participated in homeless counts, not in New Brunswick or this area, but in other places, and it's not necessarily unsafe. I mean, like you're out with a bunch of people. But however, it is a little rough because of the conditions. But I know one of the directors of Coming Home and the Middlesex um, Board of Services were interested in getting Rutgers students involved in the count. Part of being involved in the count is by, you can go to Elijah's Promise or Coming Home, I believe is on Bayard Street. You can contact them and, schedule it in. But throughout that, right, like as she said, volunteering at the soup kitchen is one way, but also plugging in. You guys have access to computers. When I was on the streets, I didn't have access to computers really. And there are limited computer resources in libraries. So, you may get on one, you may not get on one. So you guys can access the computers. You can write up all the services and print it out and then hand those out to people that you see that are homeless. Get a good understanding of the services that are in your area or outside of your area. And if you see people going through those problems, network them to those services. Besides your own individual, collective, concerted efforts, that would probably be really key. Getting the information out there and getting people to services is one of the major elements of homeless organizing. I mean, our organization is a network organization when it's not a service organization or a mentor organization. We really because you can't handle it all by yourself. That's the point of developing a community. That's the point of getting as many hands on deck. It's also the point of getting your departments involved because they too have ideas, connections. They can push policy. They can make doors open that you as an individual can never make.
So about the homeless counts, that reminds me of the fact that the official count of people in the U.S. who live under the federal poverty line doesn't include the homeless because they don't have a permanent address.
Right.
So what kind of efforts have there been to change that? Because I think that's kind of ludicrous.
There's tons of organizations addressing that, lobbying at HUD, going, you can start a petition on change.org. You can start a White House petition for those things. You can get a petition going around the campus addressing that. Also, which is not included, are in the unemployment statistics are homeless. Another that's not included are people that, and mainly the reason why they're homeless because they're not going through that rigor of applying to unemployment and working unemployment. Sometimes you'll be in the unemployment office for 8 hours. People don't even realize that collecting unemployment is a full-time job. It's a full-time job. So if you're homeless and you have limited access to travel, you have limited access to time because you're moving back and forth, trying not to be harassed by the police or being closer, getting closer and closer to resources that you can access, you don't have time to be at the welfare office, going through this loop, running this, going through that loop, all the bureaucracy that you have to deal with that. So those people are not being counted, and that stems the stereotype and stigma that the homeless don't work. Those are the type of issues that us academics can start bringing out to the general public, because those are larger policy issues, right? So that's what I mean by getting your departments involved. That's what I mean by you as academics. We have access and language that can persuade the middle class. We have to build alliances. I focus a lot on self-determinism, but the next thing to self-determinism is alliances. That's how change happens.
Yeah, I like that a lot because I think as students we have a specific skill set, and I think starting a petition and engaging the middle class to change policy, I think that's something that we could be good at.
Right. I mean, that's why I framed it in such that jargon. I know I'm talking to an academic audience, and like things like the millionaire tax. That is an issue that us middle class people can push and rally around that would affect the entire population. The living wage is another thing that we can rally around as the middle class, even low to moderate income, those of us who have homes and have a stable position into which we can seek this form of policy change, we can develop these issues and get people talking. By like in this documentary, as you can see, the homeless will talk to you. Like I would have talked to anybody who wanted to talk to me. Because you spend a lot of time alone, you really do enjoy the company. You know, so
I have a statement and a question. I'm here honoring Darwin, Jill, the whole homeless community of New Brunswick, Mercer County, New Jersey, and Brooklyn. More so, I don't know what was edited about my documentary or how you perceive me, but I walk amongst you. That same count you just talked of, I was being in the soup kitchen every single day they made that count. Not one person counted. I was by the river, nobody counted. I said people in flashlights, nobody counted. More so, I was in your dining hall, I was in your computer labs. I was probably standing next to you asking for a cigarette. I had different hoodies on, and maybe the same one, you still didn't know who I was. That's not the point. Homelessness is an epidemic, and it's a culture of poverty. These people are talking from their own experiences in facing homelessness, and like you just said from, I don't know if people were here for the Skid Row Project, it was a national epidemic, and it has to be addressed through one simple thing. You are 30,000 students, and there is maybe a very small demographic of homeless that can be encompassed by your education and your love, your wisdom and compassion combined. In that note, homelessness is much more than what we perceive it as, because the majority, like you said, is working class poor. The working class poor, for instance, let me just give you a backdrop. I've worked with Elijah Thomas extensively with the executive director of Elijah Thomas, Liz Ann, more so the new current executive, Jim, got his last name. But just recently I'm working with the Georgetown Playhouse and their curriculum and what they're trying to do. And not only that, I'm working with DevCode now with the Hidden Grounds Project and doing some other things. So all these things are current and have to be mobilized, but in order for it to be effective, you have to cross the threshold. Now, in order to cross the threshold, you have to say hello. You may have to shake their hand because they're humans. They're in under their constitution too. They have the right to food, shelter, and education. And Mr. Dawu, what we don't know about Jill, because I know her like my sister. Mr. Dawu, I know him like my brother. You see what I'm saying? And I know his brother, and I know his other brother. You know what I'm saying? Who saved my life. Certain things that they didn't tell me, I would have died in the streets. All these things are current, like the health. Yeah, okay. I take a shower. I live at the Mercy, like Mr. Burns said, and Belinda. We met before, but I'm sorry. But you know, like these situations, like you have to like come at it and look at it like, okay, what is it? Self-reliance. Every homeless person has their own walk, but when you engage them, sociologically, psychologically, normally, for a cigarette in any situation, you'll come to see, like I was waiting for the bus stop and there's a guy, nobody knew who's homeless. I talked to him, hey, what's up? How you doing? He's like, yeah, I was 48 credits shy of having my master's degree. If we had the fun, possibly this gentleman would probably be educated and be behind as a professor educating us in, who knows, socioeconomics and labor studies and whatever it may be. But nobody cared, and he gave up. And people tell him, you're homeless, so don't even attempt it. And stay within this little illustrative thing. In regards to MIPH coming home, I respect Mercer County. Middlesex County is not going to end homelessness unless we engage, unless we wake up, unless you say they're human too, unless we do, like you look at that homeless person as though he's your sister, your brother, your cousin, your dog that you take care of. You see what I'm saying? Because if it's cold out and it's like 2 degrees and you hand me a can, I'm gonna throw it back at you. I don't have a can opener. I'm not carrying a knife. Throw it back at you. What do I need that for? Now what I will do is put on my RU hoodie and stand by the dining hall, excuse me, help with the gas light, financially, and lie blatantly so I can eat. I probably had more meal swipes than all of you combined in this room. You know what I'm saying? I had more online time than all of you combined. I slept in every single, I slept here. I slept on living in a new high rise. I slept on every single campus I slept on. I slept under the bridges, name it. Actually, Hickman Hall, everybody familiar with Hickman Hall? Hickman Hall, the gates is up there, is because of me and some of the homeless that was living there in 2003. I'm dead serious. More so, When you come out of Hickman Hall, you go to that bridge and you go around it, the bridge right there, it's because of me. So I lived it. Matter of fact, if you break it down, it's still drawing in there higher than that, from where I was. But it's not about me. It's bigger than that. And what you really have to encompass is that you walk amongst them. That's why do you think they set up this beautiful paradise for you in Rutgers? Why do you think they gave you this beautiful Starbucks? You see what I'm saying? I'm not even speaking right now. I'm speaking on the strength of the homeless. And the homeless, who was homeless? From the people that we honor the homeless. Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama was homeless. He left his royalty and went to be homeless, and then he found enlightenment. So there's a lot of things we have to look at. We have to respect these people as human beings and come to them and say, hey, how you doing? He may have an addiction problem, he may have that, but guess what? We can all look at our own family members and find that same person and identify with him in our family. So it's just being compassionate and combining the wisdom in short. I'm not going to take it any further into academia or anything long without being here. Me and John still having a 10-year conversation since who knows when. And it's still ongoing until you guys get in the conversation. When you get in the conversation, guess what happens? It filters out. But now it filters out to national level, it filters out to viral level, it filters out in every subcategory. You guys can change the whole demographics. And it's a great idea. Great idea, ever a great idea. But unless we have a year-round emergency shelter in the landlocked New Brunswick, nothing will change. You may search them, you will help them, we can get them jobs and have self-reliance, and they'll get their own apartments. But now how New Brunswick is demographic, ready to the Rutgers target because of the gentleman that got murdered in the backyard. Now they're gonna police and categorize the areas around Eastern Avenue differently. So if you look homeless, you're going to jail. We have to change those stigmas. So, in essence, just be aware of who you're walking with, be aware that they're humans, and be aware they want the same exact things as you. There's more commonalities than there is differences. They all have eyeballs, kidneys, toes, I mean, you can name them. So, regardless of anything, study up on it, because your wisdom is your defense to defend the homeless, if you really care. Because it's like, if I took away your financial aid and I took away mommy and daddy, where you at? We woke up now. So that's it. Thank you. God bless you. And that's it.
I just want to comment on that. Well, first, we didn't really have anything about you. We had something about Jill, about her film. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to complete the interview, so I did interview him before. And when I started out working with homelessness, it was because of a social action project, and I graduated from the Institute of Women's Leadership program, but when I was in it, part of the curriculum is that you're supposed to create social action projects something that is as a gender lens. And for me, it's like a Jill, right? It was on the idea that like, women who are homeless exist in New Brunswick, even though there are more men, and that there are no women's shelters. So that's why she was cohabiting at first with a friend of hers, but that wouldn't work on because he was disabled, so he was getting money from the government. And now she's still on the streets. So, but like I wouldn't have figured that out, or I wouldn't have known anything about her, or have any information on her if I didn't try to go out to Elijah Thomas each week, every Friday or so, just talking to people, like coming up to them and saying like, hey, how are you, or what's going on with you, or what have you been up to, things like that. Because to be honest, I struggled with it so much, thinking that almost like us, because my problem was that I had all these stereotypical negative perspectives of homelessness. Oh, they deserve it. Oh, they're dangerous. Don't speak to them. All these different things, and it got to me because it was even if people didn't realize it, I had such a hard time getting up to them and talking to homeless individuals. But over time, it became easier. But you have to first choose to do it. You have to first decide that this is something that shouldn't have ever existed in the first place. But we did it because we listened to too many people, So I think that's why I created a second panel list, so this was not my first one. And with the help of different student organizations, I'm glad that many of you came out because we really need to hear about what's going on in Brunswick. We really need to hear from the people who have been here for more than we have. And we're just here because we're students. We're here, for example, I am here. And when I actually, my hometown is on South Jersey, I come over to Brunswick. But I recognize that I live here for most of the time, within a year, than I do when I'm home. I actually go home now. So, I'm hoping that we can actually reach out to different student organizations because many of us are always focused on doing some kind of service work. And for us to stay connected in that way, for us to really spread word on what is going on with this panel, and also what we'll be doing in the future to come. Yeah, thank you. So I mean, that's why I also suggested in the flyer that I would like to propose this student organization, because although we have, for example, NG and they have their own committee of under homelessness, I just feel that, I mean, I've been to their meetings, and I just feel as if they're not very informed about what's going on in Brunswick. So the only way to be informed is to actually put yourself in a situation where you're not talking to people who are going through many of the the homelessness in Brunswick. So if you're interested and also would like to learn more about how to set up this organization or how to be involved with it, we would like to send out more information and then for you to come to meetings and participate. So based on what you've learned here, and also please tell your friends and just inform other people using your social media networks, because that's how we will get word out. You know, even though it starts off with just a few people here, we can do so much based on what we already are offered as a student here at Rutgers University. And I'm just saying this because as a student, I know for a fact that once I graduate, it's really hard for me to do anything about homelessness, to be honest, because I'm already set just on how to get my life started, you know. But I understand that we're trying that too right now, but we actually have more resources than we can ever ask for. So I'm hoping that you will look into this and work with me in the future. Thank you very much for coming, but also if you have any other questions, feel free to ask them, and also talk to the panelists. If you want to get to know them more or anything, or just ask me. Just go onto the event page and ask me other questions or how else you can participate. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah.
I just want to say one last thing. This is evidence that Rutgers has a long tradition of student activism that's highly successful. Highly successful. We are one of the only schools we are one of the top in the Big Ten that actually creates opportunity for low to moderate income students. We award the most Pell Grants, like big time Pell Grants. We are supposed to be the Ivy League of the working class. I'm very much interested in starting that tradition. I really do beseech you that if you're graduating from this school, it gave you a good education. If you want to honor Rutgers, the best way of honoring Rutgers is continuing its tradition of creating opportunity for the state of New Jersey.
Thanks. So, thank you everybody for your time. If you want to watch it again, we were only able to capture like part of this where the sound was working, but it is on YouTube. And last words is, you guys are really brilliant individuals, and each of you is very unique and very special, whether you're in college or not in college, or you graduated or you're in high school. I don't think any of you are in high school, but don't make assumptions. I just want to say that each one of you has the potential to make a huge difference in your communities. And a lot of times people, they don't realize that. But I'm telling you right now, you have the potential to do it, and I hope that this conversation or the conversations you have amongst each other will spark something that will give you the drive to be known as someone who's part of a community who cares about others. Because Rutgers is part of New Brunswick, and like each one of you, I'm sure you have at least like 200 Facebook friends, at least. Like imagine what a difference we could make with that network in New Brunswick itself and in the communities around. It takes a community to change another community, and communities to change a state or a nation. So just food for thought. Anyway, have a great evening. And if you want more flyers, who gave me this again? Hi, do you want to make a quick announcement about this?
Okay, so I'm part of the Douglas Residential College Environmental House, and we're hosting a movie screening on this Monday, at the CCC called Destiny's Bridge, and it's about a homeless community in Lakewood, New Jersey, and we call it Tent City. That's what they are. They live in tents in the woods in Lakewood, and there's a lot of political issues and housing issues that they deal with. So if you would like to take some flyers about the movie, it's at 7:15. I have flyers here. I have flyers up there on the table outside. So if you're interested, please take a flyer and consider attending the movie soon.
Any of y'all attend the Freehold campus, Lakewood is right around the corner from Freehold. Lakewood has a lot of services for the homelessness, for people suffering homelessness. If that's another way of getting involved, is contacting the food bank in Lakewood and contacting a lot of the ministries in Lakewood. They do a lot of good work.
Yeah, and also with the movie screen, after the movie, there's going to be a panel featuring the director of the movie and people from the movie, like actual homeless people that live in that community. They'll be speaking at the panel as well. Thank you.